Good morning, comic book fans. Welcome back to Comics in 5 Minutes. I'm Evel Vano Shorty, and I'm going to complain quite a bit throughout this entire review, but I'm not going to complain about the comic book I'm reviewing. This is John Constantine Hellblazer, Dead in America, and it's spectacular. And the reason I'm not going to complain about that, but I'm going to complain about a lot of other stuff, is because Simon Spurrier and Aaron Campbell and Jordi Belair and the letter whose name I forgot on top of my head got kind of screwed over by DC when they first took their swing at Hellblazer. And it was a really, really bad thing that DC did in terms of how they handled it, how they marketed it. And there was don't get me wrong, there was also some bad stuff going on in the world at the time, and it meant they didn't really get a fair run. So let's start at the beginning. It was one of the best, in fact I'm going to say it's the best Hellblazer of the last 10 years, probably even further back than that. It reminded me of the old Vertigo days of Delano and Ennis absolutely knocking out the park. But it was launched to be part of the Sandman universe thing, which is fair enough. It's the closest they've got to a Vertigo thing at the moment. Even so, it's, not quite that. But I can see why they want to tie it in. It feels like it's more of a marketing choice and actually a promotion choice here. Because not only did they do two separate issue ones, the launch issue one and then the actual issue one, but a very early part of the story, even like the second or the third part of the story, was in the Books of Magic's comic book, which meant you needed to buy 2 extra books as well as the 12 issues to get the full story. This is a bad way to handle the launch of a comic book. The fact that I think when it launched, I was one of only 3 people in my store who had it down as a pulled. Don't get me wrong, it ended up being one of our more popular series, but when issue 1 came out, a lot of people added it on the day or the week it came out, much in the way of Ultimate Spider-Man, and it became really hard to get hold of, and a lot of people couldn't get it, so didn't go for the collection, didn't go for the single issues, and went for the trades at the end, which is fine. Sure, that made money for DC, but it meant after a really bad launch, really badly handled, it came out in a pandemic year. You remember what that was like? Even during the times where it wasn't locked down, our store was still selling more comic books to people who weren't coming into the shop than were to people who came in. So people weren't coming in and trying stuff out. It made it really hard to actually capture an audience for it. Regardless of all that, DC still looked at the sales and went, that's not enough, and cancelled after 12 issues. Now, Simon Spurrier has said in interviews that he was always kind of expecting something like that, and every single story arc he did was written to be an ending if it needed to be. But it still felt like when we got to issue 12 and it ended, it was heartbreaking, because it was the start of something fantastic. There were so many more stories to tell, and they were going to be brilliant. He'd introduced new characters, he'd put Constantine back into the world in a way which had fantastic internal consistency, full and verisimilitude throughout not just the DC universe, but the way the DC Sandman universe is operating at the moment, and in keeping with the character. There was wonderful moments of comparing like post-Brexit racism to what Constantine had grown up in other parts of his life. I mean, this is a character that was kicking around when the National Front was a thing in this country. There was a lot going on. He's maintained his anti-authoritarian, he basically anti-royalty, all these kind of things which emphasised him being a punk and an anarchist when he was first created as a character, when it was kind of post-punk urban fantasy, very literally in some cases. They carried on. But what he did, what Spurrier and Campbell did to absolutely elevate it, with Jordi Belair on the cause, and she is exquisite throughout all of this, is they gave him his voice in a fully authentic way. It was brilliant to hear this in my head as he's speaking, without ever feeling the need to rub accent details on, which some writers can do when they're trying to make you imagine a British accent, not realising that Liverpudlian is very different to Cockney. Although I think it is always pointing out that one of the great shorthands of comic book writers to let me know a character is British is to have them say bollocks every once in a while. It's a very effective shorthand way of doing it. But all that to summon the character was fantastic, and then the stories were brilliant, but then it got cancelled. He went and did 12 issues of Damn Them All, which unfortunately looks like that's been cancelled after 12 issues as well, but he's come back. The first issue of this dropped the last issue, the same date as the last issue of Damn Them All, and it's spectacular. We have a couple of new characters introduced, and we have fantastic reason why they've stuck together. He's added background details just in this issue, and he set them on a totally other course. We are now in America, literally in America, and the comic book starts with a rather fantastic bit of really dark humour, foreshadowing some stuff, but also it was about a porn shoot in the Hollywood Hills. It feels 100% what I want out of John Constantine, the character, Hellblazer as a series, and specifically Simon Spurrier writing some of the most punkish, anarchistic stuff that I think he's ever done. And he's got cred for that. Go check out his X-Men stuff. He really is talking about a stateless society in that. Like, really, obviously that's what he's doing. This one, I've frustrated we're only getting a mini-series, but at least we've got it. If you missed the DC Vertigo days, if you missed Delano, if you miss Ennis doing this character, and you want to see more of it, go and find copies of it, support it. The first 2 trades are now available. We do have them in store, so go and find them, read them, get caught up, and support this work. It deserves it. It is spectacular. If it wasn't almost certainly a cheat of my own rules, it'd be my best of the year list already. That's it for now, though. We've got a few more reviews coming this week, but really not much. It's a quiet week. Until I'll see you again, though, look after each other, everyone. Stay safe. Bye!